And then,
Yeah, so I'm here to talk about the new normal in terms of marriage and family, which I think has direct implications, especially for working parents, because we don't ever get to not be in that role right now. So the first thing, though, I want to talk about, which I think I would be remiss in not talking about because I am a therapist, psychotherapist, and relationship coach, is feelings. It was interesting because I did something similar for a company last week, and I kept getting emails from one of the owners and it seemed like her fear was that it was going to be very doom and gloom because I was going to talk about the bad feelings. And I think that she was really highlighting a big fear that a lot of us have. Like, if we let ourselves feel the bad feelings, like that bad feelings have this gang and they're going to call their bad feeling friends. And, we're going to become overwhelmed by all those bad feelings. And being a mental health professional, I know that that's just simply not the case. The longer that we don't allow ourselves to feel the grief and feel the sadness and feel the anger and feel the worry, the more kind of bottled up those things get, and then that bottling up gets in the way of us finding solutions and resolutions that work. So last week she was really insistent that I leave people with some silver lining-esque things to think about. And while I do think that that's lovely and we will get there, I do want to talk about the grief for a second, because we have lost collectively a whole lot. And I made a list. Of the things that I feel like a lot of us have lost in a very short period of time. Things like, it's just simple as like Easter with our families, and Cinco de Mayo potentially, and birthdays, and our life and what it used to be, and trips, and that we've had to cancel. I have clients who've canceled cruises. One last night that couldn't go on a trip to England, and she's never been before, and we've lost connection. Some of us have lost a lot of our meaningful work, finances. A lot of us are impacted by this financially. Freedom, certainty, fun times. So a lot of us have lost a whole lot of things. And I'm sure I've just kind of like hit on the tip of the iceberg, but it's a whole lot to lose in a really short period of time. So I have seen with a lot of my clients and myself as well, and my children. I'm not sure if my husband feels this at all. He feels a little less than the rest of us in this house. But I identified that feeling as grief before the really great article that the Harvard Business Review put out, which, if you want to Google that, do it. It's a great article. I couldn't have said it better myself, kind of labeling some of what we're feeling as grief. And so we've lost a whole lot. So I just want to acknowledge that. And so when people are grieving, but I'm also seeing a lot of like what I call toxic positivity, which is not meeting people where they are. So if I have a client come in and she's lost a child, and this is a real story. I had a client come in, she'd lost 2 children, and she was crying and telling me how she should be working out more, and she should be connecting with her friends more, and she should be working more, and she's just shooting all over herself. And I was like, whoa. If I take one of your kids and I put them in your place, and I fast forward a few decades from now, and they had lost a child, what would you want for them? Would you be telling them, you should be doing more, you should be working out more, you should be hustling more, No. You would say, like, babe, just chill out. Can I get you a glass of water? Can I do some laundry for you? You would be nurturing them and finding every way you knew how to nurture them, and every way to give them a break. And so I think that while I do enjoy gratefulness practices, and I do enjoy like hustling and figuring things out, I think that there is a timing to that. And unless we really address and feel our emotions and deal with them, we're not going to get to that place of healing and being truly productive. So I encourage people to really think about kind of the tough things that they're feeling. And last night I prescribed to my client who feels like she's stuck in anger. I said, let's give yourself a tantrum room. She was talking about redecorating her bedroom. I said, put a punching bag in there, put a punching bag in there. And what if it's okay that you're just angry right now? She had spent so much time resisting the anger that she wasn't moving through it. So I think that acknowledging these tough feelings is super important. So that's grief. And I talked a little bit about toxic positivity, which I'm seeing a ton of, especially on the internet, which is like, put your big girl pants on, be grateful, work out more. It could be worse. You know, think about Anne Frank and her situation. While all of those things are true, it could be worse. It doesn't negate our personal losses. So I do feel like some of that can give us some perspective, but if it shoves us into we shouldn't be feeling the way that we're feeling, now this is like self-criticism, and that's not kind and that's not friendly. And so I want us to be able to deal with ourselves in a more kind and friendly way. Sorry, I'm noticing I look at myself in these things, which is a weird habit. And so I have this trick. If I move my little camera, it's not working. if I move my little camera, if I move my little like screen, if I move it to my camera, then it doesn't look like I'm.
And I don't know if you saw Susie jumped on too. I hope you saw Susie's here as well. Hi, Susie.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, ladies.
Hear both your faces. Well, all of your faces.
Yeah. So have you all been feeling the grief? Yeah.
I definitely have. I feel like I am really good at getting stuff done and being hyper focused and hyper functional, and that's not happening right now.
Yeah.
And that's really, for me, is a sign that emotionally I'm grieving.
Sure. Right. And I think that self-care and what the definition of self-care is changes. You know, self-care at some points is working out more and it is doing more, but sometimes it's going for walks instead of doing CrossFit. You know, it's doing yoga instead of strength training. It's meditating instead of working out at all. And yeah, grief totally impacts our productivity and motivation. So I think a lot of us are really feeling that.
What about you, Susie, or Amy, or Sarah?
For me, it's funny that you're bringing this up because I have been feeling my fear definitely and trying to allow it. And even my husband and I just kind of talk about it and just like, sometimes it's really scary. But I haven't really gone to the others, which I know that I'm feeling a lot of loss, but just being aware now that I can go to that because, it seems like I constantly just go to fear, but I think there's a lot more that's probably underneath the fear, you know?
Sure. Well, and I think that it can be helpful when we can identify those things that we've lost, then we can start to fill in the roles. So I let myself get really sad and really clear about a lot of things that I'd lost, a lot of things that I was afraid to lose during this time too. Things like, you know, I've lost some financial security. I've lost the ways that I connect with my friends. And just taking those two things alone and letting myself feel the feelings and and like having the tantrum about it, having the breakdown about it, allowed my body physiologically to get to a place where then it was like, okay, now what? Now I'm going to drag out every bank statement or the last 2 months of bank statements and credit card statements and see what I can eliminate in terms of subscriptions and what are the things that I'm unnecessarily paying for that I don't need, period, or I don't need during this time, which like one of the things was Rent the Runway, which I do for work, which I can wear the same shirt every day now and sweatpants and nobody knows any different. So and then in terms of connection, you know, it forced me to get to a place to invite my friends to an awkward Zoom happy hour, which didn't turn out to be so awkward at all. And the effects of that carried over for days for me. And I have another one scheduled today at 4:30 and I'm really excited. Yeah. So getting really clear about what, like if people have lost a spouse, I help them get clear about like, let's get clear about all of the roles that person filled for you. Like, they're not just the person who slept next to you at night, which we can fill that role at some point, but maybe not tomorrow or even the next week or even the next month. But there's a lot of roles that person played, and we can start filling those in really different ways. And we might have to get creative. And I think that, this is, in terms of loss, is kind of the same thing. So I think it helps to really like go there so you can get clear about where to go next. And the next thing I was going to talk about is fear, which I think a lot of us are feeling, that anxiety, that worry. I think fear, I think a lot of people, are like this to fear, and I like fear. I think that fear is really important. I think that it keeps us safe. I think that our brains has helped us survive a lot of things. In this day and age, we don't need it to stay alive when we come up against a saber-toothed tiger. So I think it's a little bit overactive in our brains. We don't need it quite as much as we used to. And one of the greatest analogies I've ever heard, in terms of fear, maybe it's a metaphor, I could be getting those words mixed up, but Elizabeth Gilbert, in her book Big Magic, talks about fear, and she talks about it like you're going on a road trip with fear, and you want to talk to fear and be like, fear, thank you for keeping me safe, but I'm going to put you in the back seat now. You can't drive, you can't touch the radio controls, you don't get to decide my next move. I will consider your input, but you're not going to determine my next step. And so I love that analogy. And a few weeks ago, I was giving that analogy to a client, and she said, I'm putting that bitch in the third row. I got a 3-row vehicle. She's going all the way in back. And I think that for a lot of us, yes, we're feeling a lot of fear, and I think it's okay to feel it. But fear and stress is motivating to a certain point. And then once it gets to that point, it's demotivating and paralyzing. And so I want you to notice if you're starting to feel that paralyzation, then we need to kind of put fear in its place, which is in the back seat, and not let her touch the steering wheel, the GPS, or the radio even. Thank her for her service, but currently, there's being paralyzed isn't helpful. In terms of our kids, I have smaller kids. What are the ages of everybody? If people have kids in the room, tell me how old your kids are.
I don't have kids.
No kids. Okay, then I won't talk about kids then.
Funny, all of us don't have kids that are on the call, but all of us are in relationship. Well, I actually, Amy, I don't know that for sure. I don't want to say.
Yeah.
But all of us are in relationships, which is really what drew me to it, because when you have two people navigating grief and fear and anxiety, and two imperfect humans that we are, how do we navigate that gracefully?
Yeah, well, I think the first step is going back to what I initially talked about, which is you have to be nurturing and compassionate for yourself. Because if you can't do that for you, you're going to be completely unable to do that for the people that you love the most. And so I think a part of that too is being boundaried and not taking too much on right now, and knowing where your limits are, and being compassionate and nurturing for yourself so that you can be that for other people. And for me, that really, I think, especially for those of us who struggle with like self-worth, I think it's really helpful for me to put somebody that their value is unquestionable in my place, and ask myself, what would I want for them if they were feeling the way that I'm feeling? Like a best friend, I put my oldest daughter in my place. And then what I would want for her always becomes very clear. If she were in this moment feeling the way that I was feeling, would I want her to keep hustling, or would I want her to take a nap? And I think that moment by moment, all of that can change. And it depends a whole lot on, what's happening and how you feel. But I think that that's how you meet yourself where you are and know what's the next right best step for you. Let me see. So oh my gosh. I had a question of this week that was like, how do I not kill my spouse during this time? And I think a lot of people are feeling kind of more anger than maybe we are, or they're quick to anger. quicker to anger than they are used to being, and that makes total sense to me. I think that we've had to like take on a whole lot, and our threshold for sending us over the edge is just not very big right now. And we're in this state of high alert, especially if we let ourselves watch the news for very long. So in terms of anger and going to that blame and criticism, what I like to talk about is kind of what is affective neuroscience. And I know that makes me sound kind of nerdy, but I think it's helpful for me in terms of knowing what's happening in my brain so that I can detach from it. So the people that we love the most can trigger us, and that can tend to trigger our fight or flight response. And when our fight or flight response is triggered, we don't have access to learned skills or behaviors. It's why we say and do things in the moment that just don't behoove our relationships at all. And when we're calm, we know that those aren't the things that we should be saying, or we'll say, I didn't mean it, I was just angry. I think we're just all living potentially in a place that's just very close to being sent over the edge in terms of that fight or flight response and being on high alert. But I think that when you know that, you can do something different. If you know that, then you need to know that you're probably going to be needing to take more timeouts, walking away before the things fall out of your mouth that you know won't behoove your relationship, and getting to what you want, what you need, what hurts, and what you're afraid of. And I think that all maybe has shifted and changed, especially for people in households with kids. I know that in our household, our roles and family systems and schedules and all of it has had to completely change. And this is all one big experiment that we're readdressing every day. What worked, what didn't work, what needs to change. And so like my husband and I have structured it so that every night all of our kids know, like, this is mom and dad time. I think if you don't have kids, it's just as important to be putting in. So when I think about balance, I use a definition of balance that I heard years ago, which is very simple, and that's why I like it, which is work, rest, move, play every day. And thinking about where am I going to plug all of that in every day. And in our family system, it's taking into consideration my schedule, my husband's schedule, and 3 kids' homeschool schedules, and figuring out where are we gonna plug all that in for all of us, and make it work.
Will you say that again? Those things again?
Yeah, work, rest, move, play.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and so for us, that means at 8 o'clock every night we're done. My kids know at 8 o'clock we are no longer parenting. The family room is ours. We're going to be watching shows with dirty words, dirty scenes that are completely inappropriate. And they're out. My littlest goes to bed at 8, and my older 2 can entertain themselves before they go to bed. And plugging in when we're going to get alone time, and like when we're going to move our bodies. So yeah, does anybody have any questions? No.
I do. Sorry, it took a minute to unmute myself. Okay, so my partner and I are basically living a normal work day, which sort of feels like a missed opportunity. We both come into our separate rooms between 8 and 9, and we come out at like 5 or 6. And I know like routine is helpful, but we are not going to have this time working from home together forever. And
Sure.
I'm wondering if there are things, I guess I'm feeling a lot of pressure to take advantage of the time. And I don't know how to do that. And we're driving each other crazy.
How would you know you're taking advantage of the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess intentionally doing things differently at certain times, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that when I think about work, rest, move, play, and getting those things into categories, like my whole family was in a room, and we filled in what belongs under work, what belongs under rest, what belongs under move, and what belongs under play. And those things have somewhat changed over the course of all of this. And I just had a couple this morning where, you know, their work schedules are decreased, and so to not lose their minds, they have been re-landscaping their whole front yard from like 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. And he's like, and I think we also need to figure out how to plug in some time for us, because that's not happening. So I'm wondering if that's if you're wondering about plugging in time for the two of you.
Yeah,
Sarah,
I think.
Sarah, I have a suggestion.
Yes, please.
What about if you just decided, just baby step, like, let's just eat lunch together. So instead of sitting in your offices from 8 or 9 until 5 or 6, you know that at noon or 12:30 or 1 that you're taking 30 minutes to a half hour, just kind of sit and have lunch together. And even if that's just microwaving leftovers, or if it's actually cooking something, but then you have that time to kind of connect about what's happened so far that day, or to listen to a podcast together, or if the weather's nice, to sit outside or something like that together, so that you have that opportunity, but you still feel productive with your work day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, and I guess when I asked, like, how would you know if you were taking, you know, the most advantage of this time? What would that look like? I was trying to it wasn't the greatest question, but I was trying to get you to be more clear about what it is that you're wanting and needing more of out of this time. I think from your initial question, I think I heard that it had to do with you and your partner, but simultaneously that you're driving each other crazy.
Separate, yes. The other issue is that we've had to renegotiate chores, because when you're home all day, you have to run the dishwasher every day now. And before, we probably did it once a week, and there's dishes everywhere all the time, and that's driving me nuts. So we've had to like set new rules and who's going to own them. So I think we're on the other side of that one, but that one was for the first couple of weeks for sure, driving each other a little nuts.
And what I was hearing are some of the things that Micah, you were saying earlier. So I'm wondering if that's why you asked that question, that shoulding. Is it that you really need that, or are you shoulding yourself? Is that, Micah, why you asked that question? Like, how do you know when you'll be successful, or whatever the question was?
Yeah, how would you know if you're taking the most advantage of this time? I didn't know what the answer would be. I thought that it might lead us down the path of, oh, she's shitting on herself, or it might lead us down the path of like, oh, she wants more quality time with her partner. But yeah, I mean, I think this is so new for everybody. Like in the beginning, I was a little bit reluctant on hopping on and doing things on social media every day, because I'm not an expert in how to, create a dynamic, healthy family system during a pandemic. I am an expert on how to do that when there's not a pandemic, but I have found that, you know, some of my background and expertise, I think, is making us getting to the resolutions a little in a little bit more of an efficient way. And so this is all an experiment for everybody, and everybody's having to renegotiate a lot. And so when we're having to renegotiate a lot and moving through a totally, kind of new time, trying to find our new equilibrium, that takes consistent communication. And so if we were in a big company trying to find a new equilibrium, a new company that's pivoting, trying to find a new equilibrium, we would be having meetings about that every day. And so if you have the framework of work, rest, move, play, then my husband and I at 8 o'clock every night are talking about what worked, what didn't work, what do we need more of, and, what do we need to do better? And just renegotiating every day. There was my husband is on calls from 10 to 1:30 every day. And he has a habit of, or a tendency to hugely underestimate how long things will take. And then I get really, when I feel like I'm not important, or like my time isn't valuable, then I get very angry very quickly. And so on the first couple days, he would come down at 1:30 and go, oh, and he would walk around like he wasn't relieving me from the kids. And then I'd be like, and he would say, well, I gotta send an email. I'll be right back down. Well, right back down was 45 minutes later. And by then heads were going to roll. I didn't have a client at that time, but it felt like his time was more valuable than mine. And so I had to look at him that night and say, when you say 1:30 and it ends up being 2:45, I get really pissed. So I need a better estimate. And if you tell me 1:30, then I need you to pretend that I have a client at 1:30 and that's a hard stop. Or that you're saying, I'm not quite done. I've looked at your schedule. It doesn't look like you have anything. Would you mind if I kept, that there's an acknowledgement, that there's, that it feels like there's consideration. But yeah, we're playing tag team here, and it's really interesting, really interesting. Oh, does that answer your question? I'm not sure that it did.
I think I have ideas. Sorry, I had to mute because the dog was losing his mind too.
Yeah.
I guess I just don't want to look back on this time and say, wow, we had all this time together. I wish we had done whatever. I wish we did X. I wish we did Y.
If you had $5 million in the bank, what would tomorrow look like?
Yeah, I think I think that was a good question, Micah, because it makes me, I need to get clear. I can't just go through this time and be like, oh, I hope I don't have regrets when it's over. I actually need to think about what it would look like for me to be like, yes, we used that time really well. And we enjoyed spending time together. So I do need to get clear on that before I'm just like, gosh, all we do is work the same schedule and
you must have a horrible boss.
No, I just think we have the option, because right now my boss is being like, take the time because we have it and we're not using it. I guess that's where I'm at.
Yeah. So
that's not what I meant.
Teasing. I was totally teasing. It was right there. I couldn't miss out on that opportunity. Amy and Susie, any thoughts on your end?
On which thing? On
any thoughts going through your any questions or comments?
No, I mean, I had a really hard time adjusting last week. That was my first week like at home working, and for me it was like a little bit of getting that schedule. I'm very like task oriented. I'm very goal oriented. So I like to know, okay, like I'm going to work out from this time to this time and it's going to feel really awesome. And then I'm going to be done with my workout. And then I'm going to go to work. I'm going to get these things off of my list done. And then it's going to be great because then I can go home and do this and that and the other. And so last week coming up with how to make that all fit in with staying at home, and my computer like wasn't really working with my remote access with stuff at work. And so that threw me off because I felt like I wasn't being productive. And again, I'm very goal oriented, and it's like, well, I wanted to make sure I was working this amount of hours a day, and I didn't do that because my computer wasn't working. And so I was like a hot mess, like Monday through Wednesday of last week. And then on Thursday, I got into a little bit of a groove. And then this week I feel pretty good about where I am. And then we kind of reset up my office, my home office now. So that feels better also. But my fiance, he's not really working because he works at a private dining club as the IT guy there, and they're closed. So there's really not a whole lot of work for him to do. So I have like a work schedule, but he doesn't have a work schedule. And he always has a lot of projects and hobbies and stuff. So it's like working out right now, totally fine with that. And I don't think that he's stressed out, and it's not stressing me out. And we've just kind of fallen into like a new groove. And we don't, even though we're running the dishwasher more than often than normal, like that hasn't been an issue. And we kind of changed a couple things with what time I get up in the morning, because I usually get up super duper early, so that we could walk together in the morning, walk the dog together in the morning.
Yep. And
do a little workout together and just stuff like that. And I've felt actually a little bit more relaxed. Like normally I'm like, I have to be at bed at 9:15 because I have to be up at 4:45 so I can go to the gym. And now I'm being a little, like I'm actually relaxing a little bit, which I don't typically allow myself to do. And I have not really had that stress of, I don't know if I've really felt some of that grief that you were talking about earlier, because I am such a go, go, go person all the time that I've sort of been like really enjoying saying, I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to be committed to anything. Like, I don't have to feel like I have to say yes to this happy hour and this happy hour and this thing. Like, I'll have one happy hour, Zoom happy hour a night. And then it's like, okay, that's fine. I can do what I need to do. So it's actually been a little relaxing for me now that I got over those computer issues in the beginning. So it hasn't been horrible yet.
Yeah, I think in the beginning there was just a lot of logistic issues. Like, I don't know if you can see, but like through that door over there is like our home gym. We rearranged our whole family room so we had somewhere to work out. There's weights over there, there's yoga mats. So it's like, where is our whole life going to happen in our house? And I do think this is hitting everyone very, very differently. Like I said, I don't know that my husband is grieving or has grieved. I know for sure my kids have. I know I have. But yeah, I think it's hitting all of us really differently, and we have to be cognizant of that and meet ourselves kind of where we are. But I have wondered, like, are the introverts of the world, is it hitting, are they like, yes? Are they like, woo?
I am.
Yeah.
aside from the business uncertainty and stress of that, this is my happy place. I don't feel the need to go out, and I'm doing just fine in terms of personally. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not having to do the draining things as much anymore, if at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get just enough human contact. I'm great.
Nice.
This will fill me for the day.
So you don't have to, you don't have to say no to things, you don't. That's funny.
Yeah, I love my community. It's always lovely to see everyone and to connect. But it's nice also to have downtime and have a break from humans.
Sure. Yeah, especially if you're introverted, which I think the definitions of introversion, of extroversion are kind of misunderstood quite a bit in our culture. And to be introverted doesn't mean that you're socially awkward. It just means that you recharge by being alone. I know, you think you're socially awkward. I just so don't.
No.
Well, talk to Kate. She'll tell you. She did give me a shirt that said something about being socially awkward for my birthday.
Oh, that's so
It's just
funny.
a self-proclaimed prophecy though, Stacey. If you're saying it all the time, it's gonna be that way, and Kate's gonna think that way. So
there we go. You guys are nice. See, this is all the connection I need to be around later, pump me up, and then the rest of the day I'm golden. That's funny.
Yeah, so it sounds like, Amy, I love how you were talking about earlier, kind of reworking your schedule and realizing that it doesn't have to look the same, and you can, have your mornings can look different, and you can be really conscious of plugging in time with each other. And I think that's super important. And I hope that to some degree everybody's doing that. And we've been kind of forced to do that. But yeah, I think that this time is just really, really interesting, really different, and it's hitting everybody in really different ways. I had a lot prepared to talk about, like, parenting and kids and schedules, which I don't want to. If people on this call are not dealing with all that, I won't go into that. So if you guys don't have any more questions, I think I'm happy to take questions, but I think we've kind of covered a lot.
Yeah. No, it was great. Super helpful.
Yeah. So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Making sure I
Thank
didn't
you.
leave anything out.
Thank you so much, Mika.
course.
It's so good to see everybody.
I
You
know, it's
too.
good to see you guys too. I hope I get to see you in person. I'm not introverted. We are not okay.
Yeah. This too shall pass. We'll be back when it passes. We'll all be back together.
Yeah.
Can't wait
Yeah.
to see all of you live. Good seeing you all.
All right. Good seeing you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.